What's going on, guys? Aero here, and guys, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl launched in Japan initially in 2006. And this year, we're going to be getting Pokemon Ultra Sun and Pokemon Ultra Moon launched in 2017. Now, the Nintendo DS was the very first system to offer a dual-screen Pokemon experience, with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl being the very first games to be on this system. And now with the 3DS, sure, it's a brand new system compared to the DS, but it still offers that dual-screen experience because we have two screens on the system. And now Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are still utilizing both of these screens even to this day. And so now, that means that we've basically been using this dual-screen experience of playing Pokemon for 11 years. That means if you got into Pokemon recently, like if Diamond and Pearl were your very first Pokemon games, or if Black and White, or pretty much anything else after, then you've been used to playing Pokemon with two screens for quite some time. But if you guys are an old school Pokemon fan like I am, and you grew up playing with the Game Boy games, then you know that Pokemon used to be a single screen experience. All of the Pokemon stuff that you guys play used to be possible with one screen. And now with the recent announcement that the Nintendo Switch is going to be getting a Pokemon game, a lot of people are beginning to wonder how it's going to be like going back from two screens to one screen, because sure, there have been many cool things that the two screens have offered by playing on the DS and the 3DS, but there's definitely some features that are on the DS that are definitely going to be hard to replicate on one screen, considering how the Nintendo Switch is such a different system compared to the DS and the 3DS. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about in this video. There's definitely a few things that I know a lot of you guys are unsure about and how you think it's going to be like by playing it on the Nintendo Switch if you have a Pokemon game on that. So that's what I'm going to be trying to talk to you guys about in this video, just giving you guys my thoughts on how I think Game Freak is going to work around stuff like this and how I think it's going to probably be like. So hopefully you guys are ready for that. And quickly before we get started, I do want to give a quick shout out to Prince Kamen the XVmon for giving me this idea for this video. A huge shout out to you, dude. Thank you so much for this idea, and let's get started. Alright, so the number one thing that I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering about are the Pokemon battles. Now, since Pokemon Diamond and Pearl came out in like 2006, we've always been using the bottom screen to do our Pokemon battles. Even in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, when that game's going to be coming out later this year, everyone's going to be using the bottom screen to do our Pokemon battles. It's just how we've been doing it for the past 11 years, and it's always been you tap on the bottom screen and you have all of your options that you can do in a Pokemon battle. You have the fight option where you can choose your moves that you're going to be using, your bag option where you can go to your items and your stuff like that if you want to heal your Pokemon, use a revive or something like that. Then you have your run button where you can run away if it's a wild battle, and then you have your Pokemon option where you're able to switch out Pokemon and check other Pokemon's stats and stuff like that as well. And after Pokemon Sun and Moon came out, we've also had a whole bunch of other features introduced to us in our battle screen as well on the bottom, where you've been able to see how like your Pokemon stats are, like which ones your opponents have raised and which ones your opponents have lowered and stuff like that. So the bottom screen has always been very important in our Pokemon games. We've been using it for the past 11 years, so it's definitely important. And now if we're going to go back to a single screen experience, it's definitely going to be a little bit different, and it's probably going to be something that's not something that a lot of people are used to. Now I'm sure you guys are probably saying, well, Aero, you're just going to go back to the same thing like it was on the Game Boy. But the thing is, there's definitely a lot of stuff now where like it's different, and so you can't just go back to the simple way that you used on the Game Boy. And so I've actually prepared a quick little animation demo that I'm going to show you guys. Now this is a fully animated demo that I came up with right now, so you guys can see it. I'll play it in a little bit, you'll see it, and it's definitely a quick like replica of what I think Game Freak is going to try to go for. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, but it's going to try to give you guys my perspective on what I think Game Freak is going to go for to try to be able to make the Pokemon battles on a single screen but still keep all of the big features that we have in Pokemon. So yeah, there you guys have it. You can see there in that animation that I made that the core style of Pokemon battles is still going to remain the same. It's still going to be that turn-based battling that we've been used to for the past 20 years, but you can see that I've changed the battle interface a little bit to make sure that it goes along well with only one screen on the Nintendo Switch, as opposed to having two screens which were available on the DS and the 3DS. Now you'll see that the battle interface is still pretty much the same. It's still the fight, bag, run, and Pokemon, but you'll see that I've added a new option called Info. Now this is what I think that Game Freak would try to do, or do something similar to this, and now this Info option would be the one that you would tap if you want to see like the stats of your Pokemon and your opponent's Pokemon, like if you want to see how many times your opponent used Swords Dance and how many times their attack is up, or how many times their like attack might have dropped or something from using attacks and stuff like that. This would be what you would tap on. If you want to see like your stats, how many times you've raised your defense or something like that, you can tap on that as well. You could also see like the abilities that your opponent might have and what abilities you have on your Pokemon and what they do, so you would be able to see that information. You could also see like what the held item on your Pokemon is, as well as just like how much power like your moves have and stuff like that. So basically all of that information would be there on that Info tab, and you can see there that the fight interface is still pretty much the same. You can select your moves, it shows you how many times you can use them, and you can see the type of the move that you have as well. But I'm sure a lot of you guys noticed something that's a little bit weird, which is the whole mechanic of the D-pad when you guys are selecting a move. Now you guys can see that for every single move I've chosen a different option on the D-pad. Now I'm sure some of you guys are wondering like, Aero, why did you do this? Why couldn't you just have like a button or something, or like an icon just pointing to every single move, and like you could move that icon to what move you want to select, instead of just like having all of these different options on a D-pad? Now the reason that I've decided to do something like this is because of competitive Pokemon battling. Now I'm not sure fully on this, but like you guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure if you guys are in a competitive battle, like if you're participating in like a Pokemon tournament or something like that, I'm pretty sure like your opponents like Pokemon, you're not given their movesets ahead of time. I'm pretty sure, like you guys can let me know if I'm wrong about that, but like you wouldn't know your opponents like Pokemon, like the moves that they have on their Pokemon. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't know that. Like if they had like a Landorus, like they're not going to tell you ahead of time, oh yeah, this Landorus has Earthquake, U-turn, Superpower, and Rock Slide. Like I'm pretty sure they would just like let you figure that out yourself by seeing the person battle, and like if you've seen their past battles. And basically what I'm trying to say is, whenever we have Pokemon events, like whenever we have competitive Pokemon events, you guys can see that they've always put one person screen on like the live stream, or like for the main audience that's watching there. You guys can see that one person screen is always available for like the audience to see. Now the thing is, if Pokemon's going to be on one screen, then that means if the person chooses their move or like whatever they do, the opponent would be able to see that as well. Like if the opponent looks at the main screen, or if the opponent gets like a glimpse of what's going on, then they can see like, oh, this person chose Earthquake, then like they have an unfair advantage as to what their opponent chose or what their opponent did. So I think that by doing something like this, where like you have a different side of the D-pad that you press on for each move, that way the opponent doesn't know like what they did or what they chose, and I think that that will help to balance it out a little bit, because obviously you don't want to see your opponent like what they chose as the move. Or also like even if the audience saw, like if one of the people in the audience saw like, oh, this person chose Rock Slide, and if they like signal to the person or like the other opponent that this person chose Rock Slide, it would just not work out and it wouldn't be that well. So I think that by doing something like this, it will make sure that whatever move you chose is hidden as well, so that way it'll all work out in competitive battling. Now obviously there could be some fix to this, like there could just be some spectator mode introduced in this Pokemon game like they have in Splatoon 2, and that way that would resolve this entire issue. But in order to make sure that the opponent doesn't get an unfair advantage, this is sort of the solution that I came up with, sort of having this option of a different D-pad, that way that the opponent doesn't know what move you selected. So the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the menu. Now you guys know whenever you press X on your 3DS or your DS, it opens up the menu in a Pokemon game. Now whenever we've opened up the menu in Pokemon, you've always seen that it's always been on the bottom screen, and there you can tap on like your bag, your Pokemon, if you want to save the game and all of that. So that's obviously not going to be there if we're playing on the Nintendo Switch. But this is obviously a really easy fix, so I'm just going to show you guys exactly what I would do right now. Yeah, so you guys can see it right there. The menu is not going to be that hard to put on the Nintendo Switch version of Pokemon. Basically, you just have to open a panel every time you press the menu option, and then you just have to make sure all the icons can fit on there. So that's pretty easy. We've already seen it possible in Diamond and Pearl, so that's not going to be that hard to do. Alright, so this next feature is definitely one that I know a lot of you guys are wondering about, Pokemon Ami. Now, Pokemon Ami was first introduced with Pokemon X and Y on the Nintendo 3DS, and it's been in every single Pokemon game after that. Now, Pokemon Ami is the feature that allows you to be able to like pet your Pokemon and play with them and feed them and all sorts of stuff like that, and it really uses the bottom screen a lot. Now, obviously, the bottom screen, or like a second screen in general, isn't going to be available to playing Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch, but you can't just get rid of Pokemon Ami because Pokemon Ami is definitely used a lot. It's used to like raise your friendship, and especially if you want to get Pokemon like Sylveon, you're gonna have to have Pokemon Ami if you want that Eevee to evolve into it. So to do Pokemon Ami, obviously the first solution is just using it on the Nintendo Switch on your TV if it's docked, or if it's on the Nintendo Switch itself, by just having your controller and the buttons on it. Like you could just move your joystick around if you want to pet your Pokemon in different areas. You can press different buttons to like feed it stuff, but that's not really a personal experience. Like we know Pokemon Ami is supposed to be like that experience where like you're really close with your Pokemon and you can actually feed it. So the only solution that I can come up with for this scenario is if you want Pokemon Ami, it's gonna ask you if you have your Nintendo Switch docked to basically remove the Nintendo Switch, and there you can activate like the touchscreen feature, because on the Nintendo Switch the screen is going to be a touchscreen. So there you can like tap your finger to where you want to like interact with your Pokemon, and like you can rub your finger around the screen to where you want to like pet your Pokemon and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the solution that I can come up with. I think that that's pretty okay if they want to do something like that, where if you really want to make sure that it's going to be like a personal experience by like having you be able to touch the Pokemon and stuff like that, then it's fine if they ask you to like remove your Nintendo Switch, because it's not like you're going to be using Pokemon Ami that much anyway. At least I don't use Pokemon Ami that much. I use it from time to time, or especially like if I want to make sure that I have like maximum friendship or something like that, then I'll obviously use Pokemon Ami a lot. Like I'll use it for like an hour or so, but usually I don't use it that much. So I think that right now if they have something like that where it's just an option, that'll be totally fine. Now this next thing might seem a little bit weird to you guys, but it involves a certain Pokemon from the Kalos region, and this Pokemon is Inkay. Now I don't know if you guys know about this, but Inkay actually has one of the most unique evolution methods that is possible in Pokemon right now. Now if you guys want your Inkay to evolve into Malamar, you actually have to level it up to I think a certain level. I believe it's 30, but you actually have to put your Nintendo 3DS upside down, because since this Pokemon is known as like the topsy-turvy Pokemon or something like that, like I think topsy-turvy is like one of its signature moves. Anyway, this Pokemon is all about like being upside down and stuff like that. It's really cool because you actually have to have your Nintendo 3DS upside down in order to evolve this Pokemon into Malamar. So I think that that's really cool. But obviously now if you're going to have this Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch version of Pokemon, how are you going to be able to do that? Like you can't just, if you have your Nintendo Switch docked, what are you going to do? Go up to the dock and flip your dock upside down? That's not really going to work. Obviously that's not going to work at all. So what are you going to do? Well, if your Nintendo Switch version isn't docked and you just have your like Nintendo Switch with the Joy-Cons attached, then you can just flip the whole Nintendo Switch system and that'll work perfectly fine. But let's say your Nintendo Switch is docked and you want to evolve your Pokemon. What are you going to do? The solution that I can come up with this is pretty simple. All you'll have to do is just rotate your controller. If you're playing with the Joy-Con grip, if you're playing with the Joy-Cons, or if you're playing with the Pro controller, it's really not going to matter. All you have to do is just make sure that you rotate your controller upside down, because all of these controllers do have some type of gyro and like motion controls inside of it, so it's obviously going to be able to recognize if the system or if the controller is flipped upside down. So I think that that's perfectly fine, and that's the solution that I can have for evolving Inkay into Malamar. So yeah, there you have it. Those are all the things that I think will probably be different in a Nintendo Switch version of Pokemon, so definitely be sure to click that like button if you guys enjoyed this video, and also comment down below on other things that you think could be different in a Nintendo Switch version of Pokemon as well, and how you think that Game Freak will try to fix them and make sure that they work on the Nintendo Switch. If you're new to this channel, then be sure to subscribe. I've got a lot of cool Nintendo content planned, as well as some Pokemon content coming out in the future as well, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Go follow me on Twitter at @Aero if you ever want to tweet me something or ask me something. I'm always able to reply to everyone on Twitter, so definitely be sure to go and follow me there. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching.